Hello, it's me, Seth Muller, your English 101 instructor, and I realize this is a really weird screen to start out on with this presentation. Let me just take that off there for a second. What we're going to do with this video is just talk a little bit about the academic essay structure in a very fundamental way. So, what are the basic elements of an academic essay? How are they put together? And this really sort of elemental scaffolding to an academic essay will just kind of help us understand like what all its parts are, how they're put together, and we'll even talk a little bit about why academic essays look the way they do and they have the parts that they do. Now, we might deviate just a little bit from the structure depending on the essay and the topic, but it's good to kind of start here to understand what are the most important parts of that essay and what should be in there and how should it be put together. So we're going to take a look at that in this video. I want to kind of start by just looking at the characteristics of academic writing first. So we want to remember that academic essays are usually narrative in style, so they're sentences building on paragraphs and then building on the essay. They aren't reports, they aren't lists, they aren't any other kinds of forms of writing. In a way, I like to think of a piece of academic writing as still telling a story, telling the story about your research, telling the story about your stance on a particular issue, telling the story about your understanding of a piece of texts and its rhetoric, whatever that might be. And then typically with academic writing, we focus on one driving idea. So we think about what is this essay about? What is it in a sentence? How do we describe it to somebody? And then we build upon that driving idea in the essay. So we don't want an academic essay with two or three different ideas kind of thrown together. We don't want to maybe start out talking about this particular text or this idea and then jump to this idea and then jump back to some other idea. We really want to focus on something that is built upon throughout the essay. And then we want to build our academic essay on convincing evidence. So we want to bring in potentially scholarly research, studies, gathered facts, observations. Maybe we interview people or whatever it might be. But we want to bring convincing evidence to the table. And when we do our rhetorical analysis to start things off, you're actually going to bring convincing evidence to your essay that convinces us about this particular text or this particular artifact and its rhetoric. And we'll talk more about that soon. This is based on a structure born from composition's early relationship to law. So in the 1800s, when we started, people started going to college or were going to college around this time, I should say. Law was a really common subject to study in college, and composition and law kind of went together. And so because of that, like the way we tend to put together our essays is this idea of we have an argument, or we have like a stance or whatever it might be, and then we sort of marshal our evidence, talk about how that evidence supports our argument or our position, and then we have a closing statement, just like you might see in a court case. And then in the end, we really want to demonstrate thoughtful analysis and critical thinking on whatever topic we're choosing or whatever texts we're writing about. Some key goals of academic writing is to engage in extensive research and show findings. So we really think about the writing itself is a product of like what we've done in terms of research. We want to demonstrate qualifiable learning. So instead of showing us that you memorize something or showing us that you know an equation or a formula, when we use academic writing, it shows that you have developed those like critical thinking skills that are, I think, really important. It also improves our ability to communicate ideas, and so that's something we try to push upon. And then it contributes to the academy. So I always remind students that whatever work you're doing when you're writing, you're also contributing to our college by doing research, by like looking into something, examining something. It might turn out that the essay you write becomes something that we use as an example for other students. It might be something that gets published in some way, if like you decide that you're really passionate about an issue that gets written about. Maybe it shows up in other forms, and so we can contribute to the Academy in that way. Basic structure of an academic essay. I want all of our essays to have a compelling and insightful title. So something that really captures it. So not just rhetorical analysis, but come up with a title that really matches what you wrote about and how you wrote about it. An introduction that opens with a tension-grabbing scene, thought, or idea to set the stage. I feel like every essay should draw the reader in, get us excited about this topic. We will need some context or background to help get the reader oriented, and then ultimately that thesis statement should land in the beginning. Usually it's a sentence. It's like, here's what I'm going to argue, or here's my stance, or here's what this essay is about. So really gets us to understand what we're setting up and what's about to come. We might have some additional background. Sometimes that'll show up in a second paragraph, or that could be sort of folded into the introduction. I'll also mention that we have a series of body paragraphs that build on the core argument with premises that support the main idea. So each premise is expressed in a topic sentence. So we want to kind of open a paragraph, a body paragraph, with like, what are we looking at? What aspect of this main idea are we looking at? What can you bring in terms of evidence to support that idea? So scholarly articles, research of others, personal findings, observations, whatever it might be. And then an explanation about how your evidence supports the premise or that prong of the argument. We end with a conclusion. We want to summarize the thesis in new language. So we want to come up with a different way to sort of make us think about it after we've read what you've shared with us. Unify those main points of your essay in a way that drives it home. And think of it as like your closing argument. We don't want to see a 3-sentence or 2-sentence conclusion. We want to actually see you bring it all together, make those connections, connect those dots. So we should have a compelling title, a strong opener. We should have some kind of context, background. We should have a thesis. We should have premises, evidence analysis, and a conclusion. And again, based on its relationship to law in its early days, the academic essay resembles prosecution, resembles a case. You're making a case for something. So that's all I have for talking about the academic essay structure. Hope you'll take a few minutes to sort of jot down a few notes, maybe watch the video again if you need to. And then we're going to kind of count this as our sort of second lecture of the week, and we're going to try to do these a little bit, not always in a video form, maybe sometimes a slideshow, maybe sometimes another way of kind of sharing a lesson. But we are going to kind of do this throughout the semester, kind of match what we would normally be doing in class. So I really appreciate your time in seeing this through. I know these aren't always the funnest to deal with, watching these video tutorials, but hopefully that's helpful, and we'll talk a little bit more about academic essays and structure as we kind of move along.